So today's Invent with Reinvented workshop, our workshop series covers topics in STEM. And today our presenter is Megan Jacob. She'll be teaching us about the basic applications of machine learning. Um, so with that, would you like to introduce yourself, Megan, and start the presentation?
Yeah, hi everyone. So like Amanda said, I'm Megan and I know we talked about this earlier, but I've been programming for a few years and I've really found an interest in the machine learning field. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. So let me just start screen sharing and then I can just get right into it. Okay, let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so hi everyone. Like I said before, I'm Megan Jacob, and this is my presentation on Intro to Machine Learning. So, okay, so first off, a little bit about me. I'm part of the Reinvented Magazine team, and I work as the creative director at Reinvented Magazine. I specifically lead the branding team. In regards to machine learning, I have experience researching in machine learning. Currently, I'm looking at this phenomenon called like bellwether counties, where essentially there are certain counties which typically predict the election results correctly, and this year a lot of them screwed up and like basically proved to be like really inaccurate this year. And we were just basically looking into maybe why that was, what happened in the 2020 election season. And that's just, one thing that I'm using machine learning for right now. I've also previously interned in machine learning, and I'm just like outside of all of this, I'm the founder and executive director at Tech Girls United, which is just an organization that hosts like workshops and specifically in like tech and computer science if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff. Okay, so moving on. So, what exactly is machine learning? So, machine learning is essentially a subset or application of this broader topic called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is essentially where we humans are kind of trying to simulate certain, capabilities of the human brain, such as our ability to make decisions and predictions in certain situations. So, machine learning is a specific application of this where machine learning models essentially take in data and they look for certain patterns that can help them really analyze certain situations and make predictions that can help us. This can be seen in the medical field if we're trying to maybe predict a disease before like diagnosis or something of that sort. So machine learning models basically try and take off of I guess the human brain, but they can also do so much more that we humans can't do alone. So here are just a few examples of machine learning. It can be used for recommendations when you're watching something on either like YouTube or Netflix. It's also used for self-driving cars and Google Photos when it categorizes pictures. And it's also used for Siri and Alexa for like speech recognition. And this is essentially basically where the machine learning models are using data about previous, so like let me take like speech recognition with Siri. It's going to be taking in like previous data samples from speeches and like I guess hearing people talk in order to understand how to I guess parse through human language. So it's basically computers are really data driven, and that's basically where this whole idea of machine learning comes from, where we're able to kind of like feed in data that will help it basically develop an understanding where it can do stuff that we humans would probably want to maybe automate or wouldn't be able to do on our own. So if you guys have any ideas about, I guess, applications where we could be using machine learning, or just anything that you do know machine learning is being used for, definitely stick that in the chat. It'd be really cool to see those. I'm not sure if I can see the chat as well. So like Amanda, if you just want to, look at those. But machine learning can definitely be used in a lot of applications.
Yep. So does anyone have questions on machine learning? If so, um, would you either like post in the chat or use Q&A?
Okay, if no one has any, I guess, examples of machine learning that come to mind, I can move on. So Okay, so now that I've been talking a bit about, I guess, what machine learning. Oh, I think I see something in the chat. Let
Oh,
me.
actually, yes. Shannon asked if Amazon uses this too.
Yes, Amazon does use machine learning. A lot of the big companies just, do use machine learning because it essentially allows us to analyze things that we wouldn't be able to, without those kind of capabilities. So yes, Amazon uses it. I guess maybe like if you think about, I guess, shopping online, right? You typically see, I guess, there's a section which has like recommended purchases based on your previous purchases. And that's just one example of where, machine learning is being used because it's basically tracking your data of, what you have clicked on what items you have bought and stuff like that in order to figure out what you would want to use in the future. So yes, Amazon does use it. A lot of the big tech companies do. It's really where I guess the tech industry is heading. Okay. Is there something else in the chat? Like I get a notification, but then it like disappears.
Got you. So Shannon says thank you. Thank you
Okay.
for asking that question, Shannon. That was a really good one.
Yes, definitely,
Does
I
anyone
agree.
else have questions? If so, feel free to like put them in chat or ask Q&A.
Okay, so I can move on then. Okay, so now that I've gone over a few of the applications, I'm gonna kind of break up how we're gonna approach, any kind of machine learning problem that we encounter. So, okay. So the first and most important part of any machine learning problem is basically identifying the data that you need and learning how to work with that. So I'm just going to go back to, I guess, that research problem I was looking at earlier with bellwether counties. Essentially, with any problem, there's going to be some kind of context that you need to be able to understand. So oftentimes, you're going to have to do some kind of, background research in order to understand, what you're looking at. And based on that, you're going to have to identify what kind of data points might be valuable to a computer that's trying to predict some kind of outcome. So I guess if you're looking at, I guess like the Bellwether County one, for example, we could be looking at demographics. And you might think, okay, based on like our research, we think demographics is really important to figure out which counties will, maintain their bellwether streak. So like that, basically identifying, certain characteristics that we think the computer could use, and then and kind of like making a list of all those needs that we can meet them when we're looking for data. And essentially, we're going to have to compile all of that data into one huge data set that we can use for the machine learning model. After we do collect that data, we're going to make sure that we start trying to understand the data because data can often look really overwhelming, especially in huge, data structures. It's not something that, we humans can, quickly digest. So it's really important, trying to understand it. Typically, making visuals like graphs and stuff like that can be really helpful to help us just get some context on basically what we're dealing with before we start trying to apply machine learning to it. And then after that, just make sure that you clean the data and optimize it for running algorithms, since typically a lot of data sets have like holes in them or like NaN values, which is basically like no value. And that makes it really hard for the computer to like parse through. So definitely making sure that you prepare the data for the computer to work with. So, and then also, I guess one more thing to keep in mind is that the quality of the data is extremely important. And I would say your machine learning model is completely dependent on that. So definitely make sure that you are, making sure that the data that you are collecting is credible and also useful for the computer. You don't want to just, stick in data for the namesake. It's really an important part of it, even though it may not seem to be at first. Okay.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but we actually have a question. So um, someone asked, I know there's a lot of discrimination within the world of machine learning in terms of being trained with non-diverse data sets. Do you know anything about how companies are combating this?
Um, I don't know too much about that at the moment. I do know that it is a big issue. Um, I know companies have improved, but I don't know too much about the procedures they're taking at the moment, but I know they are improving. I know, just a fun fact, like I know a while ago that Google had this issue where it like misclassified people of like a darker skin color. Um, in like its Google Photos like categorization system. So they are definitely like, catching that stuff and trying to improve it, probably by just like, I guess, trying to get more diverse data sets. Cause like, Google and, other big companies do have access to, a lot of resources. So if they do want to, they can get more data, like advanced data sets. So definitely, I would say like as soon as they like realize that problem, it is like something they would be taking initiative on. But I'm not too sure about their exact procedures and stuff like that.
Yep. Also, another interesting case study. A while ago, they were discussing like voice sets such as like Amazon Echo and stuff like that, because the voice detection algorithms worked a lot like harder for people who had accents instead of people who grew up like speaking like English as their native language. So that really goes to show how the training data that you use in machine learning can really impact like the results of the algorithm. Also, just touching upon a point, from now on, if you have any questions, just stick them in Q&A and we will answer them.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely also like a really good example of the kind of things that are going on in the field. I know bias is not something that I touched much or like at all upon in this presentation, but it's definitely such an important thing to look into, especially if you're interested in going to machine learning. Okay, so continuing on, after you basically get the data that you're going to use, you want to start applying machine learning algorithms. Oftentimes, you're not going to know which one is best right off the bat, so you're going to want to try out different algorithms based on your prior research and just comparing, how they're faring compared to the others to figure out which one would be optimal for the data that you're dealing with. And after that, you just want to fine tune the model because each model has its own default parameters. So just fine tuning that to find the perfect parameters that are going to give you the best accuracy rates. And that's essentially all there is to getting started. It's not too bad. Hopefully, this seems a bit more approachable. But okay, so now I'm just going to go a little bit more into how we can get started with, I guess, a few more technical kind of terms. Because I know I gave you guys like a brief overview of stuff, but I know it can be confusing. Like, okay, I have to get data, but like, what exactly does that look like? What am I going to use for managing the data? It can be kind of confusing to make a sense of. So hopefully this like slide right here is going to help you guys. So the first thing when you start machine learning or like any kind of like technical project, you're going to want to have some kind of background in programming. And for machine learning, I highly recommend Python. It just makes it a lot easier to, deal with data. The second thing you're going to want to do is explore pandas, which is basically a library that is used for managing data. And even if you're not, going into machine learning, it can be used in a ton of other applications in the data science field as well. So it's definitely a really valuable skill. And after that, I would look into other libraries like Matplotlib just to help you guys, understand how to like visualize data and that kind of stuff, because it's all an important part of, the machine learning process. And then after that, I'd look into, machine learning packages. I included scikit-learn here because it's what we're going to be using today, but definitely look into, a few different machine learning packages to see, how you can run models and, get started. So with all that said, I'm going to be going over a quick little example. So I'm going to stop sharing and then let me just reshare the example. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in Q&A before I get started. Okay, can you guys see, I guess a page with like flowers on it?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So this is Google Colab. Um, a lot of times people use something called Jupyter Notebook. I'm using this because it's online and it's really accessible for anyone who wants to get started. It's basically the same thing as Jupyter Notebook except online. So definitely recommend like this website if you are interested in getting started without like having to go through the whole like download procedure of like Jupyter Notebook because it can be confusing. But I'm just going to be running through a bit of code to show you guys, machine learning in action. So Basically, we're going to be applying machine learning here to identifying different types of flowers. So we have three types of flowers over here, and we're going to be using certain characteristics to basically predict which type of flower the flower that we're like trying to predict is. So first off, I just started by importing the different libraries and packages that I'm going to be using. After that, I imported the data set that I'm going to be using. This iris data set is actually a data set included with scikit-learn, which is really cool. Like scikit-learn has a few different data sets to play with when you get started. So I'm just going to run that. Okay, now that we've imported the stuff, let's take a look at the data. So here I create a data frame. That's what DF stands for, data frame. And then I've printed it out. And this is basically the data that we have. We have these four characteristics here, and using these four characteristics, we're trying to predict the species of the flower. So now what we're going to try doing is trying to visualize the data, like I mentioned before in my presentation. So here I created these two graphs, basically using the petal-like characteristics and stuff like that in order to, kind of classify the flowers to see if we can find any trends right off the bat. And here we do see some stuff that can be helpful when we're trying to analyze the results of, the model, and when we're trying to analyze our predictions. But this just basically helps us get a better sense of, I guess, like our situation as a whole. Like we can see that like the setosa flowers typically have like a petal length between like 1 and 2, and those kinds of things we can kind of like pull right off the bat here. And after looking at that, we can start getting started with the machine learning part. So first, we're going to start with splitting the data. It's not something that I talked about in the presentation, but essentially the reason for this is we want, I guess, a section of data to train the model and basically feed into the model so it can learn how to, I guess, identify the type of flower. And
Oh,
we
sorry
also,
to interrupt. We actually have another question, and this one's from Shannon. So
okay.
she's asking, where are the libraries sourced from?
So they're all libraries that are built into like Python. So they all just kind of come with like, the Python language. If you are running this on your device though, you're gonna have to like make sure to install each and every, library that you are using. But on Google Colab, I don't really have to like worry about that. I can just go like import, sklearn, and it just imports into here, and it basically just comes with Python as a whole. Um, if you have any other questions, let me know. Okay, so I think I was going over, I guess, splitting the data. So here, basically what we're doing is we're splitting the data into, testing data and training data. And here, if you look at this line, we have 20% of the data being devoted to, testing, and 80% of the data being devoted to training. And I know I just skipped over these two lines, so let me just explain what these are. Essentially, kind of like in math, where you have, I guess, a function that has an output that we typically like denote with y. That's kind of how this works. We have like the input x, which is iris.data, and it's basically these four columns here. And then we have iris.target, which is the y, and it's the species here. So basically we're using, X to predict Y. And this is like just draws like a really quick parallel to math, and hopefully that makes it a bit more clear. But that's essentially what we're going to be doing. And okay, so we split the data. Now we're going to try running a machine learning model on it. So I'm going to be using random forest, which is a type of machine learning algorithm. And the first thing we're going to want to do is import a random forest classifier for use in this scenario. After that, I just, create the model in this line of code. Then what I do is I take the X training data and the Y training data and I feed it into the model to basically train it. And then after that, for clf.score, what I'm doing is I'm testing it with, the test data in order to figure out, okay, how accurate is this final model? So I don't think I ran all these cells. So let me just run all of these cells really quick and we can see what we get out of it. Okay, so we got a 93% accuracy rate with the, random training set and the random testing set that we inputted. And I think that's pretty good. It's definitely, close-ish to 100, but it's definitely good for our, first model. But now let's see, what I guess other models can do for us. So here I have, random forest over here. I have logistic regression, which is another type of model. Oh, sorry. Okay, and then we have decision trees, and we also have a naive phase. So let's run all four of these and we can see which one has the best accuracy rate. Okay, so in this case, we have with our like particular training and testing set, what we got is a 93% accuracy rate for all of them except decision trees, which gave us a 90% accuracy rate. And basically, using this, we can try and figure out which I guess model we want to continue with. We might want to try, some other stuff to I guess find the best model in this case, and then after we do that, we'd want to continue fine tuning it. I didn't cut off the fine tuning part. That can get a bit more complicated as we go down the road. But this is just essentially to give you guys a quick little intro into how this works. So I know that was a lot of code. So please let me know if you have any questions about it. But this is essentially just how to get started, running machine learning models. And that is all I have for today. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Super, super cool. All right, that was an amazing presentation on machine learning. You really nailed it. You really nailed it. Okay, let's see. So Shannon says, very neat. Yes, indeed. Um, okay. Yes. Breaches says loved it. Oh, okay. So Sarah asks, how did you get access to the machine learning research opportunities as a high schooler?
Yeah, so for mine specifically, basically I guess like the lab that I'm working at came to our school to kind of like present about the opportunity. They were basically looking for high school students who wanted to I guess partake in research, and they just kind of like presented to us, and then like if we were interested we could apply, and then they selected people. So yeah, this was definitely through like my school, but I know like not everyone's school, presents these kinds of things, especially with COVID. It's definitely a lot harder. But I would say like apart from that, I would try networking. Networking is really useful for, trying to get opportunities. So definitely look into that, contacting people or also just, I know there are a lot of like amazing communities, especially for women in STEM and stuff like that. So maybe if you like look into those, you might be able to find some people who are like posting opportunities or might be able to help you with your search. No, I'm a junior. Oh, yeah, and that was just an answer to the question, are you a senior? In case like no one saw that, because that was like really out of context if you did.
Okay, so Shannon asks, are there any online resources you might recommend for interested students?
Okay, so if you're specifically interested in machine learning, I would definitely say first, like, I mean, I know like I'm a visual learner, so definitely like YouTube is my go-to for like, any kind of machine learning content. Um, I would definitely say that I really found it helpful to also, I guess, have communities of people to ask for help. So I would say like join a few like Slack communities and that kind of stuff where you can kind of meet awesome people who are like already doing, all kinds of cool things. They are really useful for I guess like learning about like new tech topics. And I would also say like when you're getting started, it might be a little confusing, but like looking at the documentation for like I guess like pandas and scikit-learn stuff is useful. I would also say though that you do learn by experience. So I know like me, like having like internship experience and stuff like that, that really helped me learn stuff because I feel like that just gives you a whole new level of experience that you can't really get on your own. So I would definitely say like looking for like internships and stuff like that would be like a great resource as well.
And yes, this question is answered. Cool. So you mentioned the program that your school brought you. Could you tell us like a bit more about the program and kind of like what it was about?
Yeah, so essentially in a so this is like really specific to my area. So I don't think it's something that all of you can do, but essentially there's like a lab in my area that like recruits high school students who are interested in partaking in research, and essentially they just came to us to basically talk about like the different opportunities they have. They have like research in like biology, chemistry, and they have like computer science and stuff as well. And they have different like research advisors that you can work under. And first of all, like you apply for the program. After you applied, and then, like if you get selected, you can basically look at the different I guess research topics that each advisor is looking at, and then you can apply to join their team. So like I was interested in like machine learning, so like I applied to join the team, like the machine learning team. And I there were like a few machine learning teams, but like I looked for the advisor I was interested in, and made sure like I included some of my like previous experience, and then applied to join their team, and I got accepted into that, and that's like where I'm researching right now.
All right, so Barija asks, do you have any mentors?
Okay, so I guess in terms of mentors, I have participated in some like mentorship programs in the past. I don't know if you guys have heard of Built by Girls, but I have like participated in their mentorship program before. So that's definitely where my mentors have come from. Apart from that, like I haven't really done much else, but I definitely would recommend looking into those because that's a really great way to, network with professionals.
Sweet. Yeah, Built by Girls is like a really good program if you want to gain exposure to like people in tech and like professionals. Um, hmm. Okay. So, um it's kind of early, I guess. But seeing as we still have a lot of participants, let's send out the feedback form for now. In the meantime, if anyone wants to ask questions, please do that. But for now, we have a form that if you filled it out, it would be super cool. Just because we're looking for ways to continue improving Invent with Reinvented and making it better. So any feedback you give us will be super, super helpful. In the meantime, if anyone has any more questions, continue putting those in Q&A. Okay, so Shannon asks, what interests you most about machine learning over other types of coding?
Yeah, so for me, I think the really intriguing part was the fact that like machine learning is kind of trying to simulate like I guess our human brain. Like it's definitely not there yet, but it's definitely, trying to go in that direction. And I think it was that kind of aspect of it. And also like the way it's growing in the sense that like you don't really know, what's coming next. There's so many like, discoveries and that kind of stuff that really make it really intriguing and fascinating to like follow along with. So I guess with that intriguing aspect and also just the fact that it is, trying I don't know, I've always been fascinated by like the human brain and just kind of seeing how like, people are trying to, simulate that using computers is just like an idea that really caught on in my mind. So just like I guess that idea has been really intriguing and since then I've just been finding that really, I guess something that has like propel like my interest in that field.
I actually have another question before we move on to the next question from Sarah. What got you into machine learning and what is so interesting about it to you?
Yeah, so okay, I believe I got into machine learning after like seeing a few projects at a hackathon. I know before that I was like into web development and that was kind of like where I was going. Then like, I kind of got exposed to a field at a hackathon and I thought it was really interesting, just seeing how I guess just seeing like the potential and I guess the uniqueness of the field. I think there's definitely a lot that's going on and there's so much that's like unknown about the field that really kind of pulled me into it, and I looked into it. It was really confusing and overwhelming at first, but I think like after looking into it, I definitely, was able to, find my interest in it. So that's how I got into it.
Super. And Sarah asks, the amount of knowledge on YouTube can sometimes be overwhelming. What did you look up when trying to find helpful resources to learn about it?
Yeah, so this is definitely a good one. I would say, okay, I first tried to get like a conceptual understanding of machine learning. I think that's definitely one of the most important things. So before you try looking into like, I guess, how it's implemented, I would definitely start like Googling, like, what is machine learning and those kinds of like, basic questions. After that, you will get exposed to, I guess, like a few terms, like key terms that might intrigue you. And then after that, just like, Googling into those key terms to kind of get, a better sense of, I guess, where you want to go with this, but I would say like definitely it can be overwhelming. But I started with like those basic questions, like, what is machine learning? What is this? What is that? To get like, I guess, a more like niched answer. And then like based on that, I was able to, continue going on. I would also say though that like internship experiences and like hands-on experiences really helped me. I think they were really what helped me like actually start understanding machine learning just because I think without that guidance, it can be really confusing because you don't really know where to go. So I think like having some kind of mentor or like hands-on experience that's also guided is also a really good way to like get that kind of, I guess, to like help you like learn and gain that knowledge.
Oh, and then Shannon also has another question. What is your ideal job to do with machine learning after you graduate?
Okay, I haven't thought that far too much yet, but um I am really interested in like looking, I guess, um I guess one interesting aspect for me is like the bias in machine learning and learning how to like combat that. Apart from that, honestly, I'm gonna say I'm not too sure because I haven't thought too much about that. I am still in high school, so I haven't thought too much about beyond that. But I do know like machine learning is something I want to go into, and it's definitely something I will pursue. Not too sure what else I'm gonna do with it though.
Super sweet. Um, okay, also just to clarify, my name's Amanda and I'm the lead of Invent with Reinvented. I didn't introduce myself in the beginning, but just clarifying that. Yes, and so it's 7:37. I think it's okay if we end a bit early. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to put them in last minute. Um, and make sure to fill out the feedback form before you go. Okay, yes. Shannon says thank you. All right, super, super cool. So thank you so much everyone for coming. We really like all had a nice time learning about machine learning. And our next Invent with Reinvented workshop is going to be in 2 weeks on March 7th. It's going to be about women in fintech with Rachel Anderson. Um, thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Megan, for being an amazing presenter.
Yeah, it was a really amazing experience, and also thank you, Amanda, for being an amazing host as well.